Alrighty, I feel better. I feel refreshed. Excuse me. It's just I've been thinking about James Gunn's Superman. Well, after the dust has settled, it seems like the movie is on its way to be profitable in the box office. It's gonna hit 500 million pretty soon, and I could not be any happier as a DC fan to see this movie rake in extra profit, to see this new vision of the DC universe get put into the limelight. And it seems that it's going to be treated with care, love, and respect. We have to see how the rest turns out. Supergirl, obviously, I'm going to review that next year. Check that out next year in theaters for sure, and let you guys know my personal opinion. But, you know, Superman as a movie, I did readily enjoy it. I gave it an 8 or 9-ish out of 10. I thought the action was pretty dope. I thought the set pieces were pretty cool. The characterization of Superman was really good in my personal opinion. The big boy blue being plastered on the screen and having his hope and encouragement and truth and justice in the American way, I thought that was done really swell, along with the other side characters as well. Could we have used more Hawk Girl? Yes, but the general other two members of the Justice Gang, Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, wonderful. Like, Terrific stole the fucking show, as I always said in my review. He was really great, as well as Lois Lane was also cool, as well as Guy Gardner, who was also cool. A lot of cool characters showing up. Lex was also great as well. My stance on the stuff I didn't like in this movie is going to be the focal point of this video. So disclaimer, I don't feel like I'm gonna cover a lot of Snyderisms from the Snyder crowd, you know, the Zack Snyder extremist who has gone on a tear about this movie, saying some outlandish shit like, well, you know, it's never gonna catch up to Man of Steel, even though it's like on its way of outpacing Man of Steel by the truckloads. So I'm not even going to cover all of that dumb bogus shit, because I made fun of the Snyder bots for like almost 3 hours, and the criticism sucks, and I feel like I don't need to do it anymore. I feel like it's way too easy, and I'm just gonna focus on the stuff I don't like first, and then I'm gonna see if I find things within nuance that I disagree with and agree with, of course. But you know, here is my criticisms of the film where it probably could have been better, and I'm going to start off with something like very substantial, and that is no origin for Lex Luthor. All right, I am kind of a fan of the fact that the movie does go at a fast speed. We've already seen things like fucking the Kents, you know, raise Clark in the farm in Kansas. We've already saw things of that nature. We already saw things equivalent of an origin, like, for example, Batman. Batman's parents always getting shot over and over again. We already saw that. Spider-Man, this Uncle Ben getting shot automatically, time in, time out, again and again. We already saw the reminiscent origin story of these characters, and one way that I like that it was done in the Batman was symbolism. We saw a child and his father die that wasn't like Bruce Wayne or anything of that nature at a younger age, just another kid grieving, so to speak, and Batman's like watching him, and you can tell like the symbolism was just very well done. You could tell what they were doing, and that was a way to show the pain of one character through another. In this, they do this text crawl that's similar to Star Wars, where they say metahumans have been around since blah blah blah, and this is the first time that Superman has ever been defeated, which is he's being defeated by Bravious Hammer, he's being defeated by Ultraman, and he gets slammed into the snow, and the movie picks up immediately. I did enjoy the fact that they skipped the origin, but one thing that I hate is that you don't really get to see or understand that what is the reason why Lex Luthor hates Superman so much in this universe in the first place, because there is no flashback to this, because the movie picks up at a very rapid pace, I did feel like the explanation for this plot point was very lost in the sauce. It was something that, okay, we kind of gotta focus on the established now, currently, and I get that, I understand that, I resonate with that. However, I wanted to know more about the intricacies of why Lex Luthor just hated this man's guts. And maybe it's just as simple as he stepped on his toe one day and then he decided to hate on this man. Like, he decided to be a prime hater. I'm not hating on Lex's character. I thought Lex was actually a standout in this film. Nicholas Hoult did a bang-up job in my personal opinion, but just a context clue as to why Lex thinks the way that he does, that would have been kind of nice to see in the film. So that's one constructive criticism that I feel should have been explored more in the movie. Next up is the stupid Hypno Glasses. The goddamn Hypno Glasses. Okay. They were dumb. I'm not gonna lie, they were stupid. What the Hypno Glasses is basically James Gunn trying to find some sort of quirky way to hide the fact that Clark Kent is Superman. Therefore, him wearing these glasses, it has some sort of like AI or some sort of cover to prevent people from noticing that Superman and Clark Kent are the same. Now, granted, I'm sure there's going to be people that will debate this, that will argue about this. They will say that, well, it was originally dumb that Superman just put on some normal ass shades with no sort of meaning of like distorting periphery or anything of that nature, and that was also just as stupid, right? It's still Superman as Clark Kent. Clark Kent is Superman, you know, vice versa, so to speak. And he's just wearing these glasses and that's it. And you take the glasses off, you can see through the disguise, you know it's him. It's just stupid, right? But I felt like trying to explain this in some complicated manner was also worse. Because we know that, yes, it's a simple disguise trick. And they're trying to say that now is technology or something like that that's sort of masking the perception, and it's harder to tell. And I just found it weird. It just didn't work for me. I would have rather them go the dumb route of, hey, all it takes is this guy wearing some glasses and that's it, or trying to, you know, allude to the fact that, yeah, he's not Superman but people think he is or whatever. It just didn't work for them trying to do this over explanation of what the glasses were doing to hide away. I didn't hate it, but I also just found it puzzling and annoying. And it's like, why are you explaining something that the audience knows is already a stupid thing from the comics to begin with? And they just put it there, and it's like, I just don't buy it. I for some reason, like, it's something that's explained, and I guess you could say it makes sense, but it's also stupid, and I just don't buy it, right? That's how it feels. Next up is talking. Now, this is a common criticism that I have seen from people, and I agree to some extent with one scene where they talk about how the tone feels tonally inconsistent with the rest of the movie due to the humor and jokes present within the film. For me, personally speaking, and this is my opinion, I did not have a problem with the jokes presented in Superman. I felt like they landed, for me, the kind of humor that felt organic, and I don't really think that this movie should have been a dark film. I feel like the problem is there are people that kind of want it a little bit more seriousness and darker elements, and that I can understand, but it is Superman, and Superman is a character of hope and encouragement, so I don't think that the movie should have been way too dark or way too bleak in certain sections. And I think that was a good idea on James Gunn to say, let's pull back a little bit on that, because that's not the thematic that we want to go for, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly okay in my personal opinion. Although I think there is one scene where there is some undermining of tonal inconsistency that a joke kind of got in the way of, and it was the scene where Superman's trying to give his big speech, where Superman's trying to say that you know, I'm human, I'm one of you guys, and he tells this to Lex, and they're going back and forth. I do believe that scene should have sat right then and there. Like the speech should have been done, whatever should have been done should have been next, without Crypto jumping in the way and mauling Lex's ass. I mean, it's funny, don't get me wrong, I did laugh at that scene, but I also wanted to know what the clashings of the minds were with this scene, with them going back and forth, and how Lex felt after Superman's speech, because we know that Lex really does not give a shit about these ideals that Superman is spouting about. Therefore, I would have wanted to see that conflict, that war of the words, that verbalness, you know, the snidness of Lex Luthor. I wanted to see that come out into fruition in this scene a lot more after Superman was done, but no, he got attacked by a dog, and I don't think that was the one part where they eased in a joke and it did not work for me whatsoever. Next is the look of the film, and this one is pretty obvious and on brand. I just got out of the theater of Fantastic Four, and you know, comic book comparisons, you know, I'll give you a little spoiler before I do the Fantastic Four review. I also enjoyed that film, and I also think it has its own problems as well, but the look of Fantastic Four is way better than James Gunn's Superman in terms of how the film is presented. Just, it has that drip, it has that cinematic visual flair that I feel like Superman 2025 was severely lacking, where the movie just is kind of flat looking in terms of presentation, and mostly it's just a lot of wide shots of Superman fighting. Although it's not really terrible, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I feel like something could have made those visuals pop a lot more. And even when putting this on a plateau of other James Gunn films like Guardians, for instance, Guardians 3 even looks way better than Superman 2025. That's kind of jarring. I think it's just kind of jarring when you compare those movies and how they look visually, and you look at Superman, and it's like, this is very, very flat looking in terms of some of the ways they coordinated the camera and style in the film. Although that being said, it's not like a piece of shit. It's not like I'm saying that. I just wish that the visual flair was a little bit better than it was presented here. And you know, there's some cool parts, some cool shots when Superman's fighting at the end of the film. It's awesome, you know, seeing all the darkness and whatnot when he's fighting Ultraman. That part was cool, seeing him fight in the ether of what is it, the interdimensional portal, and you see just a bunch of digital stuff like lava in the background, and they're all drowning in it. I thought that part looked pretty cool. That sequence looked cool, but it's some flat looking filters on the camera, like this whole saturated tone they wanted to go for, and it didn't really land with me in terms of how it was presented. And it's some parts as well that looks a little bit rubber bandy, so to speak. Not the worst thing in the world. I still think that scene at the end of Black Panther 1 with Killmonger and T'Challa fighting near the underground Wakanda train, that's still one of the worst CGI sequences I've seen in modern times recently, even though that's another film that I also appreciated. However, it could have looked visually better, and it could have been a little bit more stunning in terms of camera work and CGI presentation. Now I'm going to look at what other people have said, and I'm going to see what I agree with and disagree with, and the negative aspects. Some people found that the film was a bit too busy and tonally inconsistent. I see where people are coming from. as I said before, one of my criticisms is that they were setting up a lot. This is already established universe, so you're skipping over quite a bit. Metahumans are already around. Superman is already around fighting, and he ended one war that is set in the text scroll, and I was thinking to myself, why did they not show that at all whatsoever? Why didn't they show Superman's first loss with Ultraman in the beginning? That would have been a great opening action sequence, but they decided not to for some reason, and you just skip right to the end where Superman's all beaten and the blood is in his mouth, etc. It does get busy. I wouldn't also agree with people when they say, oh my god, the Justice Gang, they got way too much screen presence, way too much screen time, because I really liked Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner, and I don't feel like they overshadowed the Superman story that was there with him and Lois. That's the front and center characters, like him, Lois, and Lex. They are the front and center, and their story arcs are told in complete form. They get basically 70% of the movie, and maybe 70-80. I would say 80 is a safe bet, and you get like 20, maybe 10% of Justice Gang. I think 20 is being generous, because you do get that one sequence where Mr. Terrific is with Lois, and that's a chunk of the movie where he finds out about the tech and everything and what's going on, and you're uncovering that. That's like a slight subplot. I would bump that down to like 15%. Really, you don't see a lot of Justice Gang in this film, and when you do, you get Mr. Terrific doing awesome shit and bantering and quipping with Superman, and it already makes sense. And then they share scenes together, so you can bump that percentage down to a naught. And then you could say, well, Hawk Girl got undermined. I think that's fair from what people are saying, but I mean, if they would have added more of her, it would have been even more busy to the film at that point. Then it's gonna be like, well, what do you want? If they would have put more of her in there, then you would have had even more of a criticism with them building her up and not Superman overall. That's why, oh, as I kick my desk, I'm sorry about that if you heard that, but that's why I say that I'm glad Superman's arc overshadowed the Justice Gang, and you know, Lex was important to it, Lois was important to it, and the movie let that play out, and the Justice Gang are just kind of there doing their jobs, and that's it. But it worked. It worked for what it was. So that's the part where I kind of disagree with. I don't think it was that bad. Uneven tone. The movie's attempt to balance humor and social commentary sometimes results in an uneven tone. I think this is, yeah, there is humor in the film. I would disagree. I don't think that is bad. Personally speaking, I found it funny, but humor is subjective as well. There are people that will find jokes funny that I don't find funny, and then it's going to be vice versa. Therefore, it's all different. It's all relative. I believe that if you wanted a more super serious Superman film, no pun intended, then you're not going to get that here. I would say, yeah, that's the general expectation. If you don't like James Gunn, if you don't like humor, if you don't like Superman being lighthearted, that will probably be a recipe for disaster for you, in my personal opinion. If you do like those things, or you find one or the other entertaining, you probably will like this film. As for social commentary and stuff like that, they do touch upon things like, well, social media. This is going to be spoilers, absolutely, because you know, social media, there's people trying to find allegories in the war, which I find to be fucking stupid, because it's still a fictional war at the end of the day. I see people trying to compare this to Israel versus Palestine, and I'm like, what are you doing? Come on, man. Like, that is, Bravia is not fucking real. The Superman flag getting raised is not a symbolism for Palestine. I just don't buy it. Even if fucking find an explicit interview where James Gunn says that it's supposed to be symbolism to the Israel-Palestine war, then maybe I'll believe you. But I just think that people are kind of blowing that a little bit out of proportion, as well as the whole Superman is an immigrant thing, because he is an immigrant, which I said I wasn't going to get into the stupid talking points of the whole matter, but it's just one of those things that you read the definition of immigrant, he's from another home world and he is inhabiting that place. He is an immigrant. But the social media stuff, yes, there is allusions to that. I don't even care at that point if James Gunn says it's not. It definitely is. Because, I mean, one part of the movie, I'm sure James Gunn is very familiar with this. He got this question definitely in interviews. One part of the film is them shit posting on Superman. Lex Luthor has a bunch of monkeys having hashtag super shit on the screen, just shit posting him. And I'm like, this is a perfect parallel. This is a parallel that makes sense because, as you know, James Gunn is online a lot and he answers a lot of questions a lot on social media, and there are a specific, like, let's not even sugarcoat their names, okay? The people who liked Snyder stuff usually dogs on Gunn quite a bit, the extremists, and that's probably thrown in there as a parallel. I'm not 100%, but I definitely have seen him get his fair share of slack online. Some may be justified, others definitely not so much, with people trying to attack his family, his wife, and all that other stuff. So probably that's a little parallel of, yes, Superman would probably be affected by reputation. Did it really work out for me in the film? Well, I mean, I guess so. Someone being so virtuous and having a noble sensibility about themselves, I would suppose they would be a little hurt by that, to find out that their parents, their real parents, were someone who basically commissioned them to come and enslave the earth. So I would imagine that someone having that sort of nobility shattered right before them because their dad said go make a harem, that would probably be pretty awful to their whole existence, and they would have a little crisis about that, which the movie does explore. I didn't think it was that bad, to be honest. I thought that made sense. Underdeveloped characters. This was wild. Some people said that certain characters like Lex Luthor were not given enough depth or development. So again, I'm half and half on some of that. I agree that they should have showed the reason why Lex hates Superman, but in terms of him just being a straight up piece of shit, a scumbag, I think that was more than enough conveyed there when he killed Malik and all that other stuff. When Lex has a vindictive, petty personality, that was definitely front and center in the movie, and the movie did not hide it whatsoever in terms of that. You could say that, yes, why did he hate Superman? How did this originate? How did this vendetta start in the first place? You can ask those questions, and you can say that those may be a little bit undercooked or underdeveloped, but when it comes to him trying to do everything in his power to stomp on Superman like a summer ant, that is shown in full swing. That is displayed in full swing. That is the necessary steps for pushing Superman in a direction to be tested, with the public hating him, with him not being a martyr and all that other stuff. And then you see his speech at the end of the movie. It does develop these characters in the right direction, personally speaking. Some people said the music was underwhelming. Outside of the remix Williams score, I can't think of a theme within the film that I remember. Okay, so maybe I think I'd see where people are coming from with this. I don't think the music was bad or anything. I do think the themes played where they did. I probably have to give the movie like a second watch and then start to pick up on the cues, the vocal cues and everything. Although it's not the worst thing in the world, but I can see where people are coming from with this. It's not enough to knock down like a point or whatever in my personal experience, because it's whatever. I'm just there to see, like, I love music in film and video games, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, like one of my favorite video games of all time, which is The Last of Us, it's a lot of nothing in terms of the background, or it's just a banjo or something, maybe not a banjo, like, I don't know what the fuck you would call it, a violin, I don't know, it's some musical instrument being plucked in the background, and you're not hearing like a lot of thematic resonance throughout the game, and I'm there for the story, the characters, etc. And I felt the way about that as I felt about Superman, where, you know, this is what I'm here for. And I do see people giving other criticisms, definitely folks who are hating on James Gunn, jumping on his back. I'm not one of those people, so if you're one of those folks who's like, yeah, fuck James Gunn, I'm not one of those folks. I've thoroughly enjoyed a lot of his movies, a lot of his traits and everything, and the needle drops and the music he plays. Oh, there is, now I think about it, there is one piece of music that I remember, and it's the James Gunn needle drop that played during the action scene with Mr. Terrific and him hitting people with the T-spheres. That was well done. That was definitely good, and of course it's not a James Gunn movie unless he has one of those moments where someone's getting their ass beat and something is playing in the background. You know, you got fucking, there's that one scene in Guardians where no sleep in Brooklyn, or whatever that was playing in the background. I think that was, I forgot who that was done by, but I'm sorry, the band will lose me right now. However, yeah, you gotta have a James Gunn movie that has that. It's just a stylistic choice, and I thought that was fine when that drop did happen. Let's see what else. Some people think that Metamorpho was developed well. He was okay. It was mostly, he served as the sympathetic character, and it was plain as day. It wasn't bad, in my personal opinion. It was just obvious. Yes, that's the word that I would use for it. It's obvious that Metamorpho's son, or what they were setting up. As soon as I saw the baby, I'm like, okay, Superman's gonna save him. That's the first thing I thought, and I thought that ahead of when the movie conveyed it. So I'm not sure if that's a thing where you pick up on something really fast and you would cite that as an issue, but I did see that coming from a mile away. As soon as I saw the baby, I'm like, okay, he's imprisoned here, he has the kryptonite hand, and he's subduing Superman because Lex told him to. And then you see Metamorpho's son over there on the other side, and then Superman starts talking to him. I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna be the sympathetic angle that leads to Superman breaking out of the jail, and that did happen. Metamorpho made the little you know, the power of whatever, it was a star or a sun, whatever he constructed, and it started to give Superman strength, and he broke out of the cell, which I saw that coming a mile away. So yeah, I did feel that sympathetic element, and I thought it was pretty fine, but I did pick up on it rather early. Let's see what else. God damn it, more people bringing up Eastern Europeans. It's fun. Like I said, if you want to make those parallels, that's totally fine. I'm not going to, because I just don't feel a need to do so. I don't feel a need to compare a fictional war to a real one, where real people are being affected, where real people are dying, where real people are suffering. I just feel no need to do so. What the fuck? More of it. It's the president of Bravia is a Russia-Ukraine metaphor. Again, I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. Let's go down. I did see people complain about the changing of lore of Jorel. where it was found out, and James Gunn said this was clarified in an interview, that the tape was real. Jorel did send Kal-El to destroy mankind, whereas originally Jorel decides to steal hope in his son, and the same with his Kryptonian mother, as they send him to Earth. And then you realize later on there's other bad Kryptonians like Zod or whatnot that comes in, and they try to enslave the planet and whatnot. And it's kind of interesting. I guess maybe this would be future story build up. It kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball, to be honest, where Goku was sent to destroy planet Earth. Maybe it's like, again, you want to talk about parallels and other shit like that and homages. Maybe James Gunn listed from that when he decided to change the lore of Jorel, where now these Kryptonians are tyrannical, and you could probably send Zod into that in the future and have that tie in. And he goes looking for Kal-El, and he says, why have you not conquered and destroyed this planet? These are your orders. I like it. I'm gonna be one of those rare fuckers that says I like how that's set up, because it could lead to many possibilities going forward in the future. And if it is anything reminiscent to an homage of DBZ, is fine in my personal opinion. Comic fans are gonna hate this for sure, because they feel like now the S means nothing on Superman's chest. But there's also the fact that they want to go into more detail of this message, so I'm sure there's going to be some context clues that will be answered in the Supergirl film, and we're gonna probably see what happens when Kara is on that planet and how unhinged some of those people are, and some of the Kryptonian order, and some of them being good, bad, etc. Therefore, this is one of those things that needs more time to develop, but I am morbidly curious as to what's going to transpire with this change. I think, and then you just have pure haters and whatnot of fucking, this is the Dumb and Dumber of Superman movies. That's crazy. I'm reading from a Reddit, by the way. I will post those comments here. I saw another complaint that I definitely want to throw in here, where someone says, oh, this is a solidly good movie for children. Well, no shit. I mean, he's a superhero. You're gonna have kids look up to superheroes. That's a dumb fucking criticism. Superman got his butt whooped for like 98% of the film. It could have been more scenes of Superman pummeling stuff or whatnot. I mean, it for me, I guess personally, it was fine seeing Superman on the losing end. I know that's crazy to say, but again, hear me out on this one, okay? Just hear me out. This is my perspective. If Superman was winning all the time, then folks would have been like, oh my god, he's overpowered again. There is no stakes in this movie whatsoever. Superman's an overpowered character. He can't be done. He's always winning, beating shit up, etc. Therefore, James Gunn failed because he couldn't make a Superman compelling and humanized enough to lose. He's scared that Superman would lose. Even Superman struggled against the other Kryptonians and Man of Steel and shit like that, so Snyder had it better. You would have heard that non-stop 100%, alright? Do I agree that that percentage could have been raised of Superman fighting back more and more, and he was the most powerful metahuman at that time, and no one's taking that away from him? But again, you also have to show that Lex outsmarted him. I mean, that's the only way you're going to have the villain do something significant, is by having the hero lose to some capacity. That's the only way you're going to do it. Therefore, it's a no-brainer that the building blocks are there to explain that, yes, Lex Luthor studied Superman for years upon years, and then he had this giant elaborate plan that worked to slander Superman's reputation, to get into the Fortress of Solitude, find that message, slander him more, to build Ultraman from his DNA, and Superman's been fighting a ton of shit so far, other potential metahumans, and stopping a war, maybe some blood, DNA got somewhere, Lex Luthor got that, and then he made his own clone of Superman, and therefore, I mean, and he controls it too with the movements and everything. Like, you just have to buy into the fact that yes, this is why he lost, this is why he's on the receiving end. There are people that erroneously say that the kaiju battle was also an L, but I still think it was Superman and the Justice Gang having differing motives. Justice Gang wanted to kill the kaiju and Superman wanted to preserve it in some way, so they both had differing thoughts on what they should do, and Justice Gang beat that out by blowing his intestines and guts out. All right, so yeah, I don't think that was a loss whatsoever. Just two people with differing opinions on stuff, but yeah, that's sort of what I think about the common criticisms of Superman, the stuff I agree with and disagree with. Once again, my foundation is Hypno Glasses, dumb. Lex's origin could have been more fleshed out and at least told in maybe one flashback, and that wouldn't have been too bad. Superman's speech at the end kind of undermined by Crypto just going full hog on Lex, and the look of the film itself is not really the greatest, and I'm not a cinematography snob. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it feels like there is a green screen in No Way Home, I'm not going to watch the movie. I'm not one of those people, but I'm just saying, like, aesthetically speaking, it didn't compare to First Steps, which is an aesthetically better movie in terms of how they presented visuals, in my opinion. But I'm probably gonna talk about that next. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this, that you found I had some ground to cover, no matter what I said here, and no matter if people agree or disagree with the takes. I do really enjoy this movie. I really do. It's still a 9, still 8. I'm not gonna like step on it or knock it down. What I felt in that spoiler review is what I felt, and if you have any issues with this movie at all, that seems reasonable, comment below and let me know, and I will try to get back to you at my earliest convenience. But until then, that's what I didn't like about Superman. Still solid for film, and I hope to see it again relatively soon. Once again, take care. I'll see you guys later, and we're gonna look out for Supergirl in 2026. See you then.